This is Dr. Aditya Siddhi from Medicine Lectures. Today we will be dealing with aortic wall diseases, mainly the aortic sclerosis. So, what is the aortic wall? Aortic wall is basically a tricuspid wall. It has got three cusps. It is present between the left ventricle and the aorta. It permits unidirectional flow of blood from the left ventricle into the aorta, and it can close the closure of the aortic wall forms the second heart sound. You will see the structure of the aortic wall. It is basically you can think of Mercedes-Benz logo. That is the symbol of the aortic wall. This is the right cusp. This is the right cusp, and this is the left cusp, and this is the non-coronary cusp. This is when it is in a closed state. When it is in an open state, we can see them. And like a triangle shaped opening. This is the closed state of the aortic wall, and this is the open state of aortic wall. What happens in aortic stenosis? In aortic stenosis, what happens is that there will be a substrate aortic wall. That means it will be a damaged aortic wall. Damage as a result of rheumatic leak process, or it can be a congenital bicuspid aortic wall, or it can be secondary to degenerative process involving the aortic wall. On this damaged aortic wall, there will be superadded inflammation, fibrosis, calcification. This end process results in a aortic stenosis. This process of aortic stenosis is closely related to atherosclerosis. How? Because even in aortic sclerosis, there will be lipoprotein deposition, there will be inflammatory cell infiltration, release of cytokines within the wall, there will be intimal endothelial dysfunction. These findings will be there, and also in patients with high risk of atherosclerosis like diabetics, smokers, and CAD patients, there is also increases the presence of this aortic stenosis. So no direct causal relationship has been established. It is still thought to be associated closely. What happens? The myofibroblast gets transformed into an osteoblast. What does osteoblast do? It results in formation of calcium hydroxyapatite crystals, and this leads to the calcification of an aortic wall. So, what is aortic sclerosis? Aortic sclerosis means there is the same aortic wall will undergo thickening with some amount of calcification, but this calcification is not sufficient to produce LV outflow tract obstruction. What is the significance of aortic sclerosis? If this aortic sclerosis is present in elderly people over 65 years of age, it increases the chance of myocardial infarction and death. It is a marker of myocardial infarction. This now we will the causes of atherosclerosis. So, cause of aortic stenosis. First, most common cause includes the rheumatic aortic stenosis. Rheumatic aortic stenosis does not occur on its own. It can be associated with a mitral valve disease. It can be associated with an aortic regurgitation. It doesn't occur on its own. The other causes includes radiation. Mediastinal radiation can cause aortic stenosis. Another cause is the congenital bicuspid aortic valve. It is an important cause. Or it can be because of elder aging. That can be associated with degenerative process of the aortic valve can also be a cause. So what happens because of all these causes is that there will be fibrosis of the aortic wall leaflets, and there will be narrowing of the aortic valve, narrowing will occur. So what is the bicuspid aortic wall? This now we have some tricuspid. The most commonly the right and left cusp will go for fusion and will be result in the formation of a bicuspid aortic wall. It is the most common congenitally heart defect. That is the most common congenital heart defect. It has got autosomal dominant mode of inheritance. It is more common in male population. It is due to the mutation of NOTCH1 gene. This bicuspid aortic wall can have associated enlargement of the ascending aorta that can increase the risk of aortic aneurysm and aortic dissection. It is associated with coarctation of aorta. It is associated with Schwann complex. It is associated with cystic medial degeneration. This bicuspid aortic wall can also be a unicuspid aortic wall. it will open eccentrically, and the closure occurs eccentrically, which can be detected by 2D echo. What is the pathophysiology? Okay, now since the aortic wall, wherein normally the blood has to move from the LV into the aorta, here the aortic valve is narrowed. So what happens? There will be development of a gradient between the left ventricle and the aorta. What does the heart do to increase its cardiac output? It will undergo concentric left ventricular hypertrophy. So when during the initial stages, the patient will be asymptomatic. There won't be any problem. However, as the disease advances, the heart cannot be able to balance the cardiac output. So what happens is that it can go for left atrial enlargement, it can go for pulmonary venous hypertension, it can go for pulmonary hypertension, right? Then you can go for RV failure symptoms, RV dilatation and RV dysfunction can ensure. The cardiac output is usually maintained till the very late stages. Only in the very late stages, the left ventricle will go for systolic dysfunction. But the left ventricle diastolic dysfunction can occur early, and it can be an early marker of the severe aortic stenosis. What are the symptoms of aortic stenosis? Aortic stenosis patients remain asymptomatic for a long period of time before they developing the classical symptoms. Three classical symptoms of aortic stenosis are the DAS symptoms, the DAS symptoms, conjugal dyspnea, angina, and syncope. Why dyspnea? Dyspnea is because the left ventricular hypertrophy is present. That will they will have a diastolic dysfunction, and the diastolic dysfunction will increase the left ventricular end diastolic pressure. This in turn will increase the left atrial pressure and pulmonary capillary wedge pressure. That will produce exertional dyspnea. That is the first symptom. Then you can have angina. Angina is because of the left ventricular hypertrophy, the myocardial oxygen demand will increase. But along with there can be an associated coronary artery disease. Even if it's absence, the intramural vessels will go for occlusion because of the increased left ventricular mass. When the increased left ventricular mass compresses, it will compress the intramural vasculature, and the oxygen demand is also increased. These are the most common cause of angina. Syncope is because the patient will have a fixed cardiac output. They cannot increase with exertion or activities or any arrhythmias, fever. In all these conditions, the heart has to increase its cardiac output. But since the cardiac output is fixed, it can be manifesting as syncope of short duration. Okay. The other manifestations of cardiac of aortic stenosis include, in the late stages, it can cause LV failure, LV systolic failure. LV systolic failure in the form of the same dyspnea, orthopnea, paroxysmal nocturnal dyspnea, pulmonary edema, or they can say RV failure symptoms. RV failure, this occurs very late when the patient goes for irreversible pulmonary hypertension in the form of raised JVP, facial puffiness, abdominal distension, pedal edema, right hypogondral pain. These symptoms can present. Or low output symptoms. The low output symptoms can be headache, dizziness, decreased urine output, fatigue, myalgia. All these symptomatology can be present. Now, what are the signs of aortic stenosis? First, the S1 will be normal, there won't be any much defect. The second heart sound can either go for paradoxical, A2 will be delayed because of the delayed motion of the aortic valve, A2 will be delayed. S2 is basically an A2 and a P2. A2 occurs early, P2 occurs late. Here we have delayed A2. Sometimes this A2 can present after along with P2 A2 or P2 followed by an A2. This can represent a single S2, or they can have a paradoxical split in a second heart sound. If the valve goes for calcification, in that case they can have absent or a muffled second heart sound may be present. If there is LV dysfunction, then the S3 can be present. If there is because of the increased end diastolic pressure, S4 can also be present. On the pulse, they will be narrow. The pulse will have a narrow pulse pressure. Specific pulse seen is in aortic stenosis is the pulsus parvus ethardus. which is the slow rising and late peaking pulse seen in the carotid area. It can be associated with carotid thrill. The left ventricle will go for initially concentric hypertrophy. In late stages, it can go for LV dilatation and eccentric hypertrophy. The apical impulse will be heaving apical impulse. There can be evidence of double apical impulse can also be seen in this condition. And then the characteristic heart murmur. What is the characteristic heart murmur? You have got an ejection systolic murmur. Here in the low pitch, rough rambling ejection systolic murmur, best here in the second intercostal space, with the patient sitting and leaning forward. This murmur can have both high pitch and low pitch. There will be radiation of this murmur to the carotid and also to the cardiac apex. This radiation of the high pitch, the radiation of the murmur to the cardiac apex is called as the Gallavaden phenomenon. This is called as the Gallavaden phenomenon. The radiation of the carotid murmur to the mitral area, it can resemble a mitral area murmur. And also an interesting thing in JVP is that they can have A wave in JVP. Usually A wave in valvular heart disease can be present because of pulmonary hypertension and secondary RV and RA pressure overload. Here in aortic stenosis, because of the concentric hypertrophy, sometimes the interventricular septum will also go for hypertrophy. When the interventricular septum goes in for hypertrophy, it will push into the right ventricle cavity. Because of this will decrease the cavity size of the right ventricle, thereby increase the right atrial pressure and causing a prominent A wave in JVP. So, examination of investigation of an aortic stenosis. First, ECG will show nothing but an LVH. LVH means the V1 plus V2, the R plus S waves should be more than V1 to V6 is more than 35 small boxes, or there can be evidence of T inversion in 1 AVL, V5 and V6. This is called as the classical strain pattern. Or the LVH and strain. Both these findings can be seen in aortic stenosis. Sometimes left bundle branch block can also be seen. This is the ECG findings. Then chest X-ray. Chest X-ray in the early stages is usually normal. There won't be much findings because the heart only goes for concentric hypertrophy. The only findings you can see in the apical view is that there will be rounding of the LV apex and there will be some dilatation of the ascending aorta. Over in late stages, once the patient goes for LV systolic failure, you can have an LV enlargement or LA enlargement, findings of pulmonary hypertension or RV failure. They can be seen in a late stage. The next investigation will be the two-dimensional echo. This is the most important investigation in a patient with aortic stenosis. What can a two-dimensional echo pick up? The two-dimensional echo can pick up the valve orifice, the presence of any ascending aortic aneurysm or ascending aortic dilatation if it is present. If there is any bicuspid aortic valve, that can be identified. Based on the gradient, you can split into mild, moderate and severe aortic stenosis. The severe aortic stenosis, which was diagnosed by echo, follows the 40-4-1 rule. What is this 40? 40 is the 40, 4 and 1. The gradient, the mean gradient between the left atrium, left ventricle and the aorta, if it is more than 40 millimeter of mercury, that is considered to be significant, severe. And if the aortic flow across the aortic wall is more than 4 meter per second flow, that is considered to be severe. And if the orifice size is less than 1 square centimeter, then it is considered to be significant. So 40 millimeter gradient, 4 millimeter flow, and across the aortic wall, and size less than 1 square centimeter. This is considered to be severe aortic stenosis. Recently, the CT scan has been used for identifying the aortic wall calcification. It's a pre-operative evaluation tool for patients who are considered for tricuspid aortic wall regurgitation. for patients with transcatheter aortic wall replacement. What is the dobutamine stress echo? What is this dobutamine? We all know it is a inotropic agent. It has a beta 1 stimulation. It will increase the cardiac heart rate, increase the cardiac output. This dobutamine stress test is used to differentiate patients with low flow, low gradient AS with LV dysfunction, or patients with true aortic stenosis with a mild LV dysfunction. It is used to differentiate both these conditions. In the positive test means if it is the cardiac output increase by more than 20% after dobutamine stress test, it is said to be positive. Cardiac catheterization. Cardiac catheterization is not done routinely. It is done only in a few special indications, especially when the patient is having a multivalvular heart defects. So, when the patient is having mitral stenosis, aortic stenosis, mitral regurgitation, to determine what is the severity, actual severity of the aortic stenosis, that can be used to done. Then, patient with young congenital non-calcific aortic stenosis. Here, it is done because even a non-severe aortic stenosis has a propensity to develop into complication later. So this has to be done to assess the severity of aortic stenosis. Thirdly, if it is in a suspected patient with a supravalvular or a subvalvular aortic stenosis, this can be done. So what is the natural history? How does the aortic stenosis progress? What is the condition called as calcific aortic stenosis? This is a progressive condition. It progressively undergoes calcification of the aortic valve. The gradient increases by 7 millimeters of mercury every year, and the orifice size decreases by 0.1 square centimeter every year, and the flow increases by 0.3 centimeter per second every year. And what is the period of time between the onset of symptoms and death? Usually is for angina and syncope is usually 3 years, and for dyspnea it is usually 2 years. So medical management. Medical management is done mainly first vision for suspected rheumatic aortic stenosis. Penicillin prophylaxis can be given, but other things you can do is you should avoid competitive sports. Even if the patient is asymptomatic, you should avoid dehydration as that can decrease the cardiac output. You should treat blood pressure with the help of AC inhibitors or beta blockers. They can be tried. Then to prevention of atherosclerotic cardiovascular events, can go for use statins and ezetimibe. They can be tried. If there is chest pain, you can go for nitroglycerin. The NTG tablets can be used. This is the medical management. But when you take the patient for surgery, indications for surgery, patient symptomatic aortic stenosis, take the patient for surgery. Asymptomatic aortic stenosis, the ejection fraction is less than 50%, take him for surgery. Asymptomatic aortic stenosis, they should all for severe aortic stenosis. Asymptomatic severe aortic stenosis, if EF is less than 50%, take him for surgery. Asymptomatic severe aortic stenosis, if EF is more than 50%, but the ejection fraction decreases on yearly echo, then take him up for surgery. For patient with young congenital non-calcific aortic stenosis, you can take him up for surgery even if it's not a severe AS. These are the patient is a severe aortic stenosis patient. If you are planning to do some other surgery, then again you can go for if it's a severe aortic stenosis, you can take him for that aortic stenosis repair. And if the patient is having a poor exercise tolerance test, then also you can take him up for surgery. What are the surgery you can do? There are three main surgeries, namely surgical aortic wall replacement, transcatheter aortic wall replacement, and percutaneous aortic balloon valvotomy. So here the surgical aortic wall replacement is most commonly done and for the above indications. Surgical aortic wall replacement has its own fair share of complications because it's a major procedure and it can involve increase the intracardiac and postcardiac mortality rate. Intra-surgical and post-surgical mortality rate is increased. So newer methods have been developed. So whom do you go for percutaneous aortic balloon valvotomy? For a young patient with a congenital non-calcific AS, this can be tried. For an elderly patient, usually it will be calcified. In that case, the balloon valvolectomy will won't be that much efficient. But if it's an emergency, the patient is going for hypotension or shock, in that time you can try this percutaneous balloon valvolectomy as a bridge to surgery. Before you do surgery, this can be done as a temporary procedure. Then transcatheter aortic valve replacement. Transcatheter aortic valve replacement is done in a high-risk patient who can't tolerate the surgery and who is having a severe aortic stenosis and is symptomatic. That is the patient taking for transcatheter aortic valve replacement. There are two types: balloon expanding TAVR and self-expanding TAVR stents. Both of them are used. This is followed by the placement of the prosthesis. So summary, any patient with presenting with dyspnea, angina, syncope with prominent S3, S4 and paradox of being a second order sound with an ESM in the aortic area related to the carotids, you have to think of aortic stenosis. You have to confirm it with the 2D echo. Once you confirm with 2D echo, you have to manage medically. Once the medical management fails or the patient becomes symptomatic or if the EF falls less than 50% or if the patient is having severe aortic stenosis, then that day you can take up a surgery, one among the three, either surgical aortic valve replacement or transcatheter aortic valve replacement or a percutaneous aortic balloon valvolectomy. Thank you.